Welcome students to today's program. The topic of the day is the interrelation between discipline, freedom, liberty and democracy. The objectives of the program are understanding the interrelation between discipline, freedom, liberty and democracy. Liberty. What is liberty? Freedom on a national or political level is often called liberty. Freedom, then, is a lack of attachment and without a constraint or limitation. It is similar to liberty and may be useful for creative thinking. Self-discipline and freedom are two active processes that the child will construct through his own efforts. But how do discipline and freedom develop? Freedom and discipline develop through liberty. Montessori writes, "In order that the phenomenon should come to pass, it is necessary that the spontaneous development of the child should be an ordered, perfect liberty." Perfect here means complete and lacking nothing essential. Perfect liberty is the liberty that is essential for human development. Liberty and freedom are often used synonymously in English and are often considered as related words. Liberty comes from the Latin word libera, meaning both free and children. The word freedom comes from the Proto-Indo-European word prejos, means beloved, dear. It is quite interesting that the roots of freedom and liberty contain such emotional, positive words, beloved, dear, friend, and children. So, freedom is the ability to exercise free will and make choices. And liberty is the freedom to act without being constrained. Freedom is the more general word and liberty is a form of freedom. Liberty is closely connected with choice and action. Freedom is the capacity to choose, but liberty is to be able to act upon a choice. Freedom is an internal state. You either have the capacity or you do not. But liberty is an external condition. From its origin, the word liberty has an implication of permission. Liberty is given to someone. Liberty is given to the child. Freedom is acquired by the child. Just as the development of discipline requires external support for the child to follow an inner guide, true freedom requires the inner ability to choose and the external possibility to act. The development of freedom depends on given liberty to act upon their choices. Nature of liberty. Before considering the role in the democratic polity, we need to consider liberty as a feature of individual personal life first. Asa Berlin famously distinguished between negative liberty and positive liberty, between the external conditions that allows one to pursue one's own projects and the internal conditions that allows one to do so. For example, let us consider a person who is addicted to smoking. In many situations today, that person is prevented from smoking by law. Such laws deprive the person of the liberty to light up when and where he or she wishes. The absence of such external constraint would constitute negative liberty, where nothing would stop the person from smoking. Contrary to this, on the other hand, if the same person wants to quit smoking but is finding it difficult to master his or her inner control, there is nothing external to the person preventing to stop smoking but the inner strength or positive liberty also fails here. This is the lack of discipline and willpower. Negative liberty is the result of government or social or communal action or inaction. That means one has negative liberty when no person or institution is empowered to control one's actions or thwarts one's plans and goals. It is the absence of external restraint on one's actions. Positive liberty, on the other hand, is the actual ability to engage in the actions that will help realize one's goals. This means that democratic citizens, in order to be self-governing, require both negative and positive liberty. Democracy is actually not only about our own rights and freedom, but about the rights and freedom of others too. It is equally about our ability to fulfill our responsibilities to the thriving of others. The concept of democracy. In the phrase of Abraham Lincoln, democracy is a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. Freedom and democracy are often used interchangeably, but the two are not synonymous. Democracy is indeed a set of ideas and principles about freedom, but it also consists of a set of practices and procedures that have been molded through a long history. In short, democracy is the institutionalization of freedom. Philip C. Schmitter and Terry Lincoln, in their essay, What Democracy Is and Is Not, contend that democracy comes in several forms and that a state's socio-economic condition, institutions, and policies determine the form of democracy being practiced. They define democracy as a modern system of governance where the readers are held accountable by its citizens. Schmitter and Call say that the final aspect of democracy is a state-held free and fair election. Like all other forms of governance, democracies depend upon the leaders who hold positions of authority. Democracies fall into two basic categories: direct democracy and representative democracy. In a direct democracy, all citizens, without the intermediary of elected or appointed officials, can participate in making public decisions. This is practically possible with a relatively small number of people, for example, within an organization, a tribal council, etc., where all the members can meet to discuss consensus or majority role. In today's world, the most common form of democracy is the representative democracy, indispensable because of the size and complexity of the areas. In representative form of democracy, the citizens elect their representatives who in turn make the government and make political decisions, formulate laws, and administer programs for the public good. Democracy and discipline. In a democracy, citizens are not just supposed to obey the laws, but they are supposed to be involved actively in the making of laws. Our choice of leaders is supposed to be based on the beliefs, records, and agendas of the candidates who stand for election, and we are supposed to keep those elected officials informed of our wishes. In this kind of democracy, it is implied that the population generally have the virtue to refrain from using their liberty to their advantage over other citizens. Democracy, on this view, is sustained and preserved by individuals choosing to act for the common good. In Dewey's words, what the best and wisest parent wants for his own child, which must the community want for all its children. The democratic citizenship, therefore, demands good character, both in the sense that without discipline, one is unlikely to either fulfill the demands of democratic citizenship or fulfill one's own plans. Hence, a democracy requires a citizenry with discipline in order to function as a democracy. And citizens of a democracy require discipline in order to live good lives. Discipline is not just a submission to the will of another, not blind obedience, but is directly related to one's own interest. On the other hand, democracy is also the absence of restraint and the liberty to pursue one's own projects, provided that one does not interfere with the rights of others to do the same. The relationship between freedom, liberty, discipline, and democracy. The relationship between freedom, liberty, and discipline, seemingly opposing forces, is one that is strong and independent. Often, in the quest for freedom, people will shun discipline. They believe that being disciplined somehow restricts their freedom. It takes discipline to achieve the life you want to lead. It is discipline that gives you freedom and liberty to take care of yourself and your family on a level that you desire and of which you can be proud. To let the child do as he likes when he has not yet developed any powers of control is to betray the idea of freedom. Montessori continues to say that what results in a child who is given total freedom is a child that is disorderly. Freedom consists not in doing what one pleases and what circumstances invite you, but in being able to do in a direct way what is good for your development according to the laws of human existence. This is how you enjoy your liberty. Actually, there are two questions that should be asked. Question number 1, need to know what do you want? And question number 2, how do you do it? Basically, we all seek what is good for ourselves. However, the problem comes when we cannot figure out what is good. Once we have decided what is good, we are unable to carry it out. The child has an inner teacher. In fact, not only a child, but everyone is guided from within to what one wants to accomplish or to what is good for a person and what he wants, but does not know how to accomplish such a desire. Therefore, we arrive at certain conclusions. Number 1, absolute freedom does not exist due to society. Number 2, dependency is a colossal step towards freedom. So, what is freedom? Freedom is freedom with limits. This means enjoying liberty and achieving discipline. For a young child, the idea of freedom is too great a responsibility to take on. It is like putting them in an ocean with no instructions on how to swim or how to row a boat. We would never allow our children to be in such a predicament. Yet, we allow our children total freedom or in some instances none at all. A child, especially a young child, needs limits. In some instances, it is vital that we even limit their movements for safety. For example, crossing a street. The question is, how do we obtain such limits? As a parent, we must decide what is truly beneficial to our child and his/her safety. One of the ways in which children can learn these are by creating a set of rules. It is the best to focus on helping a child understand positive behavior rather than fixating on punishments. This is what discipline means. So, we can see that freedom and discipline are not opposites after all. They are allies, irrevocably linked together. They are both active internal processes, development through one's own efforts and activities. Freedom is the capacity to choose, and discipline is the capacity to act on that choice. Now, coming back to democracy and finding its relationship to all that we have discussed so far. Democracy, as with any other form of government, limits one's liberty in order to establish and maintain social norms and laws. In a state of pure liberty, one would be free to do whatever one wants to, with no accountability or responsibility of consequences. Once societies form, liberty is inevitably altered as people mutually agree to limit their actions. And it could be any structural form of control, democratic, authoritarian, religious, or accountability that this society puts in place. In a democracy, therefore, there will necessarily be compromises to individual freedoms for the better of the whole at large. This controlled liberty existing in democracy can be referred to as discipline. The discipline which is self-imposed, accepted, and welcome for the betterment of all. Thank you, children. Hope you have enjoyed today's lesson.